Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to Oak and Blade, and today we're going to make some sausage. So sausage has been something that's kind of irritated me for a while. You go to the grocery store and most of it's just complete garbage. It's full of corn syrup and MSG and like there's just all kinds of junk in there that you don't need in sausage. So we're going to show you how simple and easy it is to make today. And that's really it. That's all I have to say. So let's make sausage. Anyway, I'm going to make 2 pounds of this today. So I've got this nice freshly ground pork from a German market in Indianapolis. And place is badass. So if you're around Indianapolis, go check out Klaus German Market. I think it's German Market. Butcher shop, something like that. Okay, let's go ahead and get the sage chopped up. I like to just kind of roll it up nice and tight, like I'm rolling a cigar or something. And just cut thin little strips. We do like that to start, and then I'll just flip it around and cut through it the other way. And we may flip it and hit it again this way. Yeah, I hardly ever buy store-bought sausage anymore. It doesn't even really taste that good. And I'm like, why do you need to put corn syrup in it? Why does it have to have all this other junk in it? Just meat and spices. Right? Come on, people. Shouldn't be that complicated. But it is. And the way that we're doing this here is the long way to do it. And it really doesn't even take that much time. We could swap out all the fresh herbs and just go completely dry. You could get dry rub sage, you could get dry thyme, and honestly, most of the time that's what I do. I just happen to have herbs growing out here, and we got a big frost the other night, and I'm like, well, it's probably going to get destroyed in the frost. I guess. I don't know if they die in the frost or not, but anyway, I had the fresh herbs already, so we're using those. And if you want to swap this out for dry, that's a really simple conversion. I mean, you don't have to use fresh. If you have the dry stuff already, just use that. Anyway, let's see, we have probably 2 tablespoons of fresh sage. It was like, I don't know, 6 or 8, like big sage leaves. So, but you're shooting for about 2 tablespoons is what you want. I would much rather just use dry thyme. Let someone else sit here and do this. These tiny little leaves. It tastes good, but there's some things in the kitchen that just annoy me. And picking thyme is probably one of the most annoying parts. But it tastes good, so we're going to do it. It was grown in the garden, so it's basically free. And who wants to buy fresh thyme in this economy, am I right? I'm going for like 2 teaspoons of thyme. So, it doesn't have to be perfect. This isn't, baking. So, it's not an exact science, so just kind of eyeball it, if you bunch it up and it looks like it's probably going to be 2 teaspoons when you chop it up. That's good. So, if you're buying it from the store in those little, plastic clamshell containers, it's probably going to be most of the container. And if you chop it up and there's too much, I don't know, use it for something else. Throw it in your eggs tomorrow morning and make a French omelet and fresh herbs. Some nice butter. Yeah, do that. you cut up too much, save it for your French omelet in the morning. All right, that's enough. That's enough of that. It's enough time. That's enough. Let's clean up by throwing everything on the floor. There we go. There we go. Okay. I'm just gonna roughly chop the leaves. You know, they're already pretty small, so it's not gonna take a lot of effort here to break them down a little bit more. Okay, I think that's good enough, and I probably have more than I need. I think, yeah, won't use quite all that. Anyway, we'll set a little bit aside and we'll have that French omelet in the morning. Be good. Okay. So now we can go ahead and start putting stuff in the meat. So grab the thyme, throw that in. Like I said, I've got about 2 pounds of pork there. So I'm going for roughly 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme and about 2 tablespoons, maybe even more sage. You know, I feel like sage is kind of the star of breakfast sausage. So I don't care if you go a little heavier on that. Okay, next we're gonna do, this is probably not something you think of for breakfast sausage, but I like fennel, and it's pretty good. It's like a nice sweetness to it. So I have no problem with it in breakfast sausage. You know, if you don't want it, don't put it in. If it's too Italian-y, don't put it in. So I'm gonna do half a teaspoon of sage, or not half a teaspoon of fennel seeds. Too many ingredients floating around in my mind. And I'm gonna kind of smash them up in the mortar and pestle. That way it's a little less like Italian sausage where you bite into like a big seed of it and you get a pop of fennel. I want it to be more evenly dispersed in the meat. So go ahead and put it in a mortar and pestle. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, I'm sure there's a dozen different ways that you can crush seeds. If you have a spice grinder, you can use that. Yeah, you could put them on a cutting board and use like a small skillet or something, or a rolling pin. You know, you can figure it out. What I don't like the thought of doing is putting them in a plastic bag and then smashing them that way. So if you want to, that's fine. I just don't want like little bits of microplastic from a Ziploc bag smashed into my spices. So just go out and get a mortar and pestle. Just do it. They're not that expensive. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. You know, and fresh ground spices are always better than, you know, spices that have been ground up for months or years in bottles on store shelves. So they retain more of their flavor when they're in their whole, you know, their whole natural form. And it starts dissipating as soon as you grind it up. So that's all ground up. Dump that right on in. We're done with the mortar and pestle. And now I'm gonna go completely against what I just said and use some pre-ground black pepper. You know what, it's fine. I use so much black pepper, I don't wanna sit and grind it every day. But especially when I'm doing briskets, you know, I don't wanna grind a whole cup of black pepper. I'm gonna do about a teaspoon of black pepper. And then we have crushed red pepper. Put a little bit of heat. And I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of that. And this is ground ginger. And we're gonna go kind of light on that. Looking for about a quarter of a teaspoon. And remember, for now, this is in 2 pounds of meat. If you go to the link down in the description, I'll have a recipe, and I'm just gonna make that based on 1 pound of meat, because that's most commonly what you're gonna find in a grocery store is a 1 pound pack of meat. And you know, that's probably most families, that's gonna be enough to feed them a meal if you're making sausage patties for breakfast, or if you're making biscuits and gravy or whatever. 1 pound is usually the norm. So the recipe on the oakenblade.com, that's going to be for 1 pound. Okay. And then salt. About 2.5 teaspoons of salt. I'm using Himalayan pink salt right now. It's just, we have a big container of it, and that's what we're using. I've noticed that it's not quite as salty as some other salts. So you may want to start with a little less salt and taste test it, and then add more if you need it. There are some salts that are just saltier and some that are less salty. So it depends on your salt. So adjust it accordingly. You know, taste test stuff. Like I said, take a dollop of it, you know, fry it up, and make sure you're good. All right, the last thing is going to be a little bit of maple syrup. About a tablespoon. Okay, and that's it. So what we got to do now is get in there and mix it up. And the best thing to do it with is this. So you can smash it around a lot better. You can make sure that all the spices are incorporated in the meat more thoroughly than you can with a spoon. You can do it with a spoon. You're probably gonna have to do it longer just to make sure everything's mixed in. The other thing that will happen is the heat from your hand and the motion of mixing is going to start causing the meat to like bind together. It'll start melting the fat a little bit and causing all that stuff to kind of get a little stickier and a little more homogeneous. Right now it's kind of crumbly. So this will help your seasoning stay in a little better, help combine the flavors better, and help your sausage patties to form together better when you form them. So use your hands. And we're just gonna get in there and just like literally just grab the meat and squish it between your fingers, rotate it, just constantly keep doing that until everything is looking good. You don't have to use gloves. I'm just doing it because you know, I'm a one-man production band here, and I don't want my hands, and I'm also in my garage. I don't have a sink out here. It's a low-budget studio. So I don't want to have to wash my hands and walk back and forth from the house and, you know. Trying to keep it clean. All right, so that's starting to look pretty good. One other thing that you can look at is on the edge of your bowl, you'll start seeing the fat kind of smearing on the edge, and that's a pretty good indication that you've mixed it up pretty good. But it's, you know, it looks a lot different than it did, you know, fresh out of the grinder. It's not as crumbly. It's stickier. It's binding together a little better. And that's kind of how you want your sausage to look. It's going to make better patties that way. Okay, I'm just going to scoop out like 2 or 3 tablespoons of the meat. It's going to make a small little patty. We're going to cook one up, and we'll see how our seasonings came out. It's just a test patty. It doesn't have to be pretty, okay? Yeah, that's what we want right there. Get nice and brown. Oh man. Sausage! Yeah. Okay. It's good. Shut that off. Huh. Pretty good. Turns out you can make sausage at home. Yeah, that's good stuff. So yeah, it's just that simple. If you want to swap out the fresh herbs for some dry herbs, go right ahead. I highly advise though that you test a piece before you call her done. Especially if you're going to use it to make biscuits and gravy or something like that, where you're just dumping it in a pan and cooking it, and it's out of your control then if it's good or not. So you want to make sure that it tastes like sausage, it's salty enough, you have enough spices in it or whatever. So if you follow this recipe, you're going to be pretty close. But like I was saying before, salt can vary depending on which kind of salt you have access to or what you have in your pantry. So start on the lighter end with the salt, mix it in, cook a small batch of it, taste it, and then you can go back and adjust things if you need to. I feel like that's pretty important with making sausage, especially if you're not like super experienced with it. But it's so easy to make. There's no reason to eat all the preservatives and all that crap. Just make your own sausage. So the link will be in the description. Go check it out, make it, let me know how it turned out, and see you next time.